You can't fire me. I quit. Think you can replace me with some other guy? Go ahead. It won't be the same. You may think I'm losing, but I'm not. Anyway, you get the idea.
These videos are not for children. If you are a children, then piss off.
Hey there, I'm Infuso. And you all asked for it, so here it is. I'm laying it out for you. The next installment in the ongoing Charlie Sheen saga on this channel that was made completely by accident. Anger management. Which is something that Charlie probably could have used at some point in life. Along with management for several other things as well. But that's neither here nor there. And let me just start off by saying, this show is needlessly complicated. Let me lay it all down for you right here. The first season of the show is 10 episodes long. A little short, but fair enough. The second season of this show lasts for 90 episodes. Yeah, you heard that right. One season, 90 episodes. And see, while I can buy Season 1 on Blu-ray no problem, Season 2 isn't that easy. You see, Season 2 comes in parts, which means I had to buy Season 1, and then Volume 2, and then Volume 3. But Volume 3 only goes up to Episode 46, which means after buying all the series releases, I still don't have the entire series, because still to this day, the whole thing was never put on video. And then, if that's not enough to drive you crazy, and I don't know how because I'm already there, I actually only just found out that this is supposed to be based on the 2003 movie Anger Management. Yeah, you know that movie starring Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler? That's what this is based on. This is an adaptation of that. How?
I don't know!
None of the same actors or even characters are in the show. The plot isn't anything alike. I mean, Charlie Sheen's not playing Jack Nicholson's character. Jack Nicholson plays Buddy Rydell. Charlie's playing Charlie Goodson. The plot is nothing alike. So I don't even know. I don't even know. Also, I don't remember that movie even doing that well in theaters to begin with. Plus, this show came out 9 years after that movie. Was there really that big of a fan base of the original Anger Management that would warrant a show being made about it? It's just, I don't know. Nothing makes sense anymore. I'm sick of this shit. Anger Management was Charlie Sheen's follow-up to 2.5 Men. Following his dismissal from the series and his very public breakdown, FX thought, yeah, you know what, now's a good time to capitalize off his star power. And you know what? They were right, as the first episode actually broke US ratings records, pulling in 5.74 million viewers in its very first episode. That is the biggest amount of people tuning into a show for its premiere ever. Like that's almost as much as people tuning into Friends when it was ending. I guess it really shouldn't come off as a shock, as 2.5 Men was a pretty big show at the time, and Charlie Sheen's breakdown was even bigger. So naturally, curiosity led to people tuning in. Would Charlie Sheen redeem himself? Would this show be as good as 2.5 Men? Well, no, to both those questions. No, absolutely, definitely not, no. And while Charlie now had a new comeback vehicle after he was kicked out of his old comeback vehicle before it reached its destination, he remained far too focused on the past to pay any attention to the present. Watching the show, it just seems like Charlie is checked out. He's practically sleepwalking his way through each and every episode. The guy really never had that much range to begin with, but at least what he did well. Here he just seems unmotivated and almost zombie-like in his delivery of lines. Nothing he ever said came off as legitimate. He was far too subdued to try and act. I just kind of get the feeling that Charlie felt this show was beneath him. He just didn't seem to have any passion for it. Though you know what he did feel passionate about, and I'm talking about very passionate about? 2.5 Men, because he slandered them at every given chance. He spent his run on Anger Management picking fights with Ashton Kutcher on Twitter, trash-talking Chuck Lorre, including jabs at his old show in Anger Management.
Why are you wearing that shirt?
I think I'll just chuck it. Anger Management.
And then, following Angus Jones's exit from 2.5 Men, Charlie publicly offered him a role on Anger Management. Yeah, Charlie, I'm sure that will work. You know, because Angus said that he found 2.5 Men detestable, but I'm sure Anger Management will totally hold up to his Christian values. You're a smart man. At the end of the day, all this obsession with his previous show made Anger Management feel like nothing more than an afterthought to Charlie. He wasn't concerned with putting together an entertaining new show. He was obsessed with trying to stick it to Chuck Lorre and his old one. Let me make this clear, I actually do kind of enjoy Anger Management. It's not one of my favorite series, but it's alright. But even in saying that, it definitely doesn't feel nearly as well thought out or constructed as 2.5 Men. A show it's destined to continually be compared to until the end of time. That is, if anybody remembers the show. It's only been off the air for a couple years now. Nobody talks about it anymore. People still talk about 2.5 Men. Maybe there's a reason for that. The series feels exactly like what it is. A show that was rushed to be put together to try and capitalize off of Charlie Sheen's public image. Despite this, and despite a very good first outing, the show wasn't all that successful. As a matter of fact, most critics were pretty brutal to the show, outright tearing it apart. The first season received a 21% overall rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten indeed. The website stated that Anger Management is aggressively so-so, with thin characters and a few groan-worthy gags for every good one. It's hard to dispute that, because as someone who's watched the entire show, that seems not just fair, but completely accurate. Maybe the most accurate description of this show I could ever read. I don't even know why I'm continuing doing the video. There's nothing else I could tell. That's spot on.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alex Jones and...
That is the perfect description of this. I can't really call it bad. It's alright. It's decent enough to sit down and watch, but it definitely isn't the hit that I think FX was looking for. It's not something I'd go out of my way to watch. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't have even bought the Blu-rays if it wasn't for all of you. So, you made me support this man. You did that. And by the way, take a look at the Blu-rays. Do you notice anything about them? Other than, you know, me owning Blu-rays in 2020, the year of digital downloads? The plastic covering them comes with stickers promoting the show itself. These are videos that I only just recently purchased, and there's stickers on the plastic promoting a show that has been off the air for about 3 or 4 years now. Meaning that there are more than likely stacks upon stacks of this show that were never sold after its initial release. So it's no wonder the last 54 episodes have yet to be released. They more than likely never will. Because the only chumps buying this shit are people like me for people like you. You did this. Honestly, FX probably loses money by producing these DVDs. Now you may imagine that being that Charlie Sheen around this time was being seen publicly as an insane behind-the-scenes prima donna who was more trouble off-screen than he was worth on-screen, that Charlie may now be on his best behavior. He's got to redeem himself. He's got to build himself back up. He's got to put some good press out there for the Sheen name. I mean, this was allegedly his comeback vehicle. I mean, he must be putting his best foot forward. Now notice I said you may think that, because if you did think that, you would be wrong. Charlie's diva antics seem to carry over with this new show. Sheen's issues continued, and while he publicly claimed that he was back on his A-game and fully dedicated to his brand new show, he'd often no-show scheduled set days. Ironically enough, angering his co-stars. His absences were a huge setback to the show, and would wind up delaying production on at least 2 occasions. And of course it did! This is a Charlie Sheen show. In 2.5 Men, you at least had 1.5 other leads here that you could maybe work with. Charlie was the main character, and everyone else was just a supporting character at best. Without Charlie, you're not doing anything. If he's not showing up, you're not getting anything done. Lionsgate had to be forced to use stand-in actors for its lead more often than ideal. And that's fine. Chuck Lorre had to use a stand-in for Charlie in the series finale. And he found himself in yet another public feud with one of his co-stars. Selma Blair played Kate. She was Charlie's potential love interest, colleague, and anger management counselor, because, you know, that's not contrived at all, that's not too much. She was the female lead of this series, but she was eventually kicked off of the show for ongoing issues with Charlie. You see, the cast and crew of Anger Management all seemed to solidify the 2.5 Men cast and crew sentiments about Sheen being hard to work with some outright calling him a menace on set. And nobody was more vocal about that than Selma Blair. So Sheen responded to this in a power play by telling producers he refused to walk back on set to work with her. Sheen said that if FX didn't fire Blair, he would walk out. And you know something? They actually did.
Oh, Kate left. Probably forever.
Kate? Despite Sheen being a well-known pain in the ass, not only on this show, but on previous shows, as said before, they basically burped the baby and gave him exactly what he wanted after. Charlie having way too much control. For someone on that much coke, wound up firing Selma Blair himself. via text. And he straight up called her a...
See you next Tuesday.
And let me tell you from experience, and this is just my experience, women don't really like being called that. I learned that the hard way. But hey, in my defense, that girl was acting like a real cunt. Selma leaving the show meant that it got completely retooled, with producers bringing in Laura Bell Bundy as her very obvious replacement, and increasing Brian Austin Green's screen time. This also meant an episode or two, including Kate, was cut despite seemingly having already been filmed. And despite it being confirmed by those who shared a set with the two, and the fact that their falling out was very well documented, Charlie went on The Tonight Show and tried to claim that there was actually no friction between the two, and that Blair was cut out of the show because they wanted to go in a different direction. Because he felt that their relationship was apparently a little bit too reminiscent of 2.5 Men. How?
I don't know!
I have no idea, because it's not like when they got rid of Selma that they dropped Charlie's aging ladies' man shtick. No, they just continued with somebody else. It shouldn't come as a shock that FX decided to not renew Anger Management following their initial 100-episode order. Between Charlie's continued terrible on-set behavior and a series' viewership decline, it just wasn't worth it to try and continue the show. The truth of the matter is, Charlie's falling out with men producers had negative effects on both him and them. 2.5 Men struggled in his absence, and he struggled without that program. Sure, Anger Management was alright, but it was never going to match up with Charlie's previous project, which again is a show it was destined to always be compared to. I do have more to say about all this, but it's more so about the show itself rather than the behind-the-scenes mishaps. So if you want to hear my take on the creative decisions of the show and the stories that went on, let me know in the comment section below. And let me emphasize here, if we do have another chance to talk about this, if it's something you guys would like to see, you'd like to hear, the next one will be the final one. It's time to do what TV should have done a long time ago and move on from Charlie Sheen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alex Jones, and we are breaking the conditioning. Now look, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kind of retarded, which is why I liked and subscribed to the Social Injustice Warriors channel. I even clicked that little bell to stay notified. You have to look into it, people. But then I began to uncover what I believe to be a secret, nefarious plot orchestrated by Zionist reptilians. Now give me a second. Digging deep, I discovered that he wants you to quote-unquote follow him on Twitter. Now think about that for a minute. What kind of person, what sort of individual wants you to follow them? You know who else wanted people to follow them? The world's biggest Beach Boy fan, Charles Manson. Those who want to show their support donate to the guy's Patreon for exclusive content. Now why is it so exclusive? What's this guy hiding from the public? What do those Patreons see that the people of YouTube don't? Then I noticed he also has a PayPal, and just for the low price of $22 plus shipping, you can get yourself a SIJW t-shirt, Social Injustice Warrior. So let's put this all together. He wants people to follow him, he calls you VTards, he wants you all to donate your money to him, and he wants all of you to wear the same clothing. So that just leads to ask, what kind of a hive-like cult is this man operating? The Infuso, the Social Injustice Warrior.